Okay, well, afternoon, everybody. I think we're just going to jump straight in, but I do hope you're all well. So, Bitcoin daily time frame. This is kind of how we left the picture, and what we were talking about on Tuesday. We were back at this candle here. Was Bitcoin actually maybe coming back down and trying to take some of these vector zones? Anywhere from sort of that 104 down to 101, and we pointed out a couple of liquidation zones in and around there. But actually, to be fair to Bitcoin and the rest of the altcoin market, we had a much stronger move up north. Now, the important thing about what we're seeing with this move is it's taken us above this descending channel that we have been looking at. And of course, that's just a nice place for us to be in terms of breaking out from this. We haven't really moved away from it yet. And actually today we are seeing that sort of retest of that channel, which again, nothing necessarily to concern ourselves about. We want to see that retest. And if it means that we sort of, just slowly move to the right over this weekend whilst retesting it, I'm absolutely fine with it. But at some stage, we're going to want to make that move. Now, we've got to be honest, the next move up will be a new all-time high. If up is the way that we're going to go, we're talking about all-time high directions. It is prudent probably to point out that it's the 4th of July today. So it's a bank holiday in whatever they call it, bank holiday in the US. So we've actually got a 3-day run of just crypto allowed to be crypto. So they can be pretty interesting times. But what we should always bear in mind is when the markets do open again, Sunday night into Monday morning, we're going to have we're highly likely to have a CME gap, which typically get filled. So whatever happens over the weekend, we just need to remember that there's probably going to be a counter move at some stage to reclaim whatever gap is formed before we continue in whichever way it's going to go. Looking at this, though, the other interesting thing from where we're seeing this yellow line, it doesn't really mean anything on the daily time frame. When we get on the lower time frames, you'll see why we drew it last week. But we effectively worked our way back down to that, which is the mean average of where we've been over the last sort of 2 months. And then we've catapulted from that. There was some news that helped us move up in a positive manner. But what we're seeing is positive. And I should also say that that's kind of been reflected across the board with altcoins. That being said, I'm not overly excited with sort of where altcoins currently are at the moment. I'm not rushing to get back into any positions in which I close, nor am I rushing to, sell. I'm just going to sit where I am with altcoins. From the BTC point of view, I'm just continuing to buy BTC as I do at the beginning of every month. We work our way down onto the lower time frame. I think we're just going to go straight to the 4-hour time frame. You can kind of get a bit of a better picture of what we were looking at and perhaps sort of see where we may end up going. So this yellow line, you can now start to see that actually there's a lot more interaction in and around this. And that's what we've been working through. And you can also see this descending channel that we've been in. And the moves are not necessarily out of the ordinary. I mean, even the move that we had from the middle of this week, we've had 2 blue vector candles, so not massive amounts of increased volume. They have obviously left us with some zones, which I've mentioned many times before, within this range over the last 2 months. All of these vector zones from the 4-hour candle and down get recovered. So that being said, we may see that move down, today, tomorrow, Sunday, reclaiming that blue and green vector candle. Sorry, I don't have my down in this area, which again is not necessarily an issue. We've got the 50 EMA, which again would be an ideal magnet towards it. But depending on how long it takes, it may just continue to slope down this. And this is just an average line. It doesn't mean it actually has to follow it. Maybe we need to be a bit more down this, and we've got a bit further for that to come back down. So, there's no real concern. Should we get down to sort of 107,000? I'm not necessarily panicking that the Bitcoin's making that strong move back down. We start losing some of those bigger EMAs, the 50, the 200 on the 4-hour time frame. Then now, as I said last week, we've got to bear in mind that this suddenly does become a target, and all of those liquidation heat map zones that I talked about on Tuesday, some sort of 105 to 104, and then I think it's 106 to 105, and then it was 104 to 103, are going to come into play. So, yeah, but a nice strong move up on Tuesday, I think it was, might have been Wednesday, and then we just got to wait to see how that one looks to consolidate. I mean, if we want to if we want to have some level of concern, just, well, maybe not concern, but, reality check with that. The other thing to bear in mind, let me just clear that and that. Is we had I drew it here. We had these drawn last week as well. So these were indicating where some of the previous high points were. There was actually one here as well. And we were talking, is that right? That should have been there. I might have drawn this, might have been from the 4 hour, that's why. Anyway, these are the high points from the previous, moves up. And what we have seen, although we've cleared some, since this low here, as we're working towards that northern part of the channel, the thing that we actually did say was, look, we're not going to get too excited until we start taking out some of these. So I think this was one when we talked about it. This was one, and this was one. Okay, we took this one out in that move, okay? And we've moved up. So fair enough, that one's gone. Let's just remove that. So remove that. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Remove that one. Get rid of this line just to unclutter things. But that move that we had over the last 2 days, look what it's turned around. We haven't closed above this line. So if this is a turnaround, if this is, that move back down, then again, we failed to clear a previous higher low. Lower high. And so, are we just seeing a reactive move from the base? Maybe got a little bit higher than that trend line that we were talking about, but ultimately buyer exhaustion runs out before we get to that peak from the previous time. And that, we need a couple of days of data just to see how that is going to turn around. But I would mark on there, 110.3, got to have a daily close above that. 110.3, 110,300. Daily close above that, and we can cross this one off. And then all we got to worry about after that is the all-time high. So that's just sort of, I appreciate giving both sides of the argument there, but maybe just tempering ourselves right now to say that move didn't quite clear it. Maybe this is going to just move back. And again, overall, this is not a negative pattern to be in. Yeah, this is just a descending channel, which could form part of a bull flag for that next move up. And we just don't know how long we're going to sit in that. We've seen this time and time again. I don't know if I have a clean chart. Let's just get a clean chart open. Should have had this ready, apologies. It's on the weekly. This will do. This is from Tuesday night. Get rid of a couple of these because I'm going to talk about. But we've seen this sort of pattern time and time again play out, sadly, over months. Even I suppose in some respect that was, although it did move down. I'm not going to count that one. And we could just be seeing another pattern play out here, just that descending channel before that move up. So, we've just got to be patient. We appreciate we're in a position we're in. Most of us have already, we've been in this market, this cycle since the beginning. So however we positioned ourselves through altcoins and Bitcoin, we're kind of there. And it's just, trading if you feel impulsive enough to do it. Otherwise, just sit in your hands and don't panic out of the market with some of these moves that are going on. Now, I'm going to move away from Bitcoin. I'm always bullish on Bitcoin. Maybe not in some of the bear markets, but generally, through this last 6 months or so, it's always been Bitcoin is going to do its thing. Altcoins, it's a different story for me, unfortunately. And whilst we will go to ETH, we'll just start with Total 2 because we're not, yes, we're in a descending channel. We're in, similar kind of situation, but there's two big key things here. Even within this micro descending channel, we're not seeing a reflective move across the board. So again, Bitcoin in this move up managed to get above this previous level, whereas right now we're significant away from it. And similarly, Bitcoin is battling its new all-time high, while we're 500 billion away from that through the altcoin market, a little bit more even. So, it doesn't feel that altcoins are really ready to pop yet. And of course, that's shown in the Bitcoin dominance chart, continuing to sort of snake up. And I appreciate, I'm just reiterating what I said on Tuesday night, but that's where it sits. We get into Ethereum itself. And again, I think we drew this fib from last week. And we've seen that move. So a nice strong move here. And I will give Ethereum its credit. We were battling that 50 EMA. In the move up that we've just had, we've cleared out all of them. We've cleared out the 50, the 200, the 10, the 20, and the 800 EMA. And we're currently above all of those. And it is a nice bounce off that 0.5 Fibonacci level. So a lot of positive things within that. But we're still just smack bang in the middle of the range that we've been in since May. Very similar story to what we've been talking about with Bitcoin there. I appreciate we've busted above and below this kind of area once, but we've now find ourselves sat within that. So slight optimism that we are above these levels at the moment, and we're just trending sideways. I just hope of hopes that we don't see that. You know, that's what I don't want to see. We have to break through this 618. That is all I'm really bothered about for Ethereum. 2,700, we have to break and hold that. We can break and hold that, then we're laughing. We broke it, we held it for a day, we lost it. So we're going to have to do it for a couple of days, and we can start then talking about reclaiming 3,000 and these vector zones up here. Because if we don't, and we start to, you know, lose 0.5, there's just too much of an appeal for down here, and Ethereum's going to be reflective of the rest of the market there, the altcoin market. Go down to the 4 hour with Ethereum. I mean, my view really is we will, you know, for those that are looking at, we've had this move up, we're probably going to move back down to sort of that 2,400. So it's not a particularly big move. You know, what we're talking, maybe 2-3% kind of move back down here, just ranging out within this. The 0.5 has been a very strong level for it, and the 800 EMA, which is difficult to see because there's so many lines on this with all the vector candles, but the 800 EMA is this one here at 2,400. You know, it's going to just act as a pretty good support, and in fact, actually, we've only been wicking through it, closing above it on the 4 hour since 23rd of June. So I think that's something to have a look at, but I think this move up here likely going to be recovered, and then we just have to start that pattern there. And again, with the markets closed this weekend, who knows where that will move. I'm just going to work my way down the list. We'll go back onto the daily and we'll have a look at Casper. Now we start to get into why I'm not so impressed with altcoins, and most of the altcoins kind of tell a similar story here. So okay, we've had that move up. We've been ranging 236 to the 382. And even with that impulse move up, look what we were rejected from. Daily time frame, 50 EMA. And we've kind of been rejected from it. And the 382. We're kind of pincing ourselves at the moment. We might have that move up. But this is what, you know, for Casper, anyone's in it, 8 cents. Got to get above that. And to be honest with you, between 8 and 9 cents, we've got the 50 EMA and the 800 EMA. So it's plenty to work on within there. And again, we start going below 0.7, we're going to have that issue. And I think if we can't hold these EMAs here, which we haven't really been, if I'm being honest, it kind of feels that actually this move down is going to be taken back down to that 7 cents level. In fact, you know, it's a couple of days up, 1 or 2 days down, couple of days up, 1 or 2 days down, couple of days up, could be today and tomorrow, bring that move back down. And so yeah, that's sort of where that one goes in the 4 hour time frame. And I'll get rid of the fib now because I think it's kind of done its purpose. We can kind of see that actually this almost, you know, hypnotic kind of wave like motion, the 50 EMA hasn't really held in recent history. So we are battling that at the moment. But for me, this seems to be the level that is best defended, which is 7.2 or 0.072, should I say. So yeah, that's what I'd be looking for. Things like Link, you know, I'm in these, so it's worth, you know, talking. But again, here's that move, you know, similar to it. We've moved up, we left some vectors on the move, 50 EMA, knocking us back down. And you can kind of see not as clean a descending channel as what we've been having, or should I say the descending channel is a lot steeper on some of these altcoins than what we saw with Bitcoin and even Ethereum. So, you know, there's even less energy on these moves up, and actually it seems to be the moves down that are creating that selling pressure for that. So Definitely something to think about. Near, similar picture. Look at that strong move up. 50 EMA rejected us back down. I thought I had a fib on here. So I think this kind of lines up. The fibs there. But what I would say, I should have probably said this on a couple of these. The one thing that I do like right now, until it's otherwise, and this one shows it quite nicely, is that double bottom. So, there could be an argument to be said here that we've got a bigger double bottom, and then we've got that sort of what they call Russian doll effect, where we're going to get another double bottom within it, and maybe we get that sort of that move going. And that was similar on CAS, though it's almost like a triple bottom here with this one, and then this one, and link this one and this one. So we potentially do have some bottoming patterns. I would suggest on those three that I've said, feels like that move is probably going to come back to it, and it's just how I feel across the vast majority of altcoins at the moment. And we take something like Solana, which had some positive news with some ETF related news this week, and it's moved up. But actually, remember, this is daily candles here, so this is the last week. We've really just stayed between closes 146 and 155 for the last 7 days, despite ETF related news. And what have we been battling? 50 EMA, fib levels, and also this 200 EMA rejections back down. So it's really pinching ourselves in there. And you could even argue that there's a trend line here in which we've been battling in terms of closes rather than wicks. So it's not great. Let's give it this and this now, just on the 4 hour. What I would say on the 4 hour at least is it's not necessarily a bottoming pattern, but we are making higher highs and higher lows. So as long as we can stay above 145, then we may well just make that move back up. And let's not rule out vector zones up there. Yes, it would mean that we'd have to clear this top, but we were there only a month ago. It's 3 weeks ago. So it is possible that that's where we go with that. Moving on to BitTensor. So BitTensor is obviously our big one in terms of where we're looking, what actions people are taking. I'm still in a little sidestep, and there are days, like the last couple of days, where it does test your metal in terms of where's your conviction lie. And my view was very much, look, I know we made it to the 20 EMA, but it's been rejecting us. I said this on Tuesday, since the middle of June. It's been the thing that has held us back. And it has come back down. We're pretty much at that 320 level. I said this on Tuesday, and I think, we've really got to listen to it. That 320 level is a pretty strong level. I mean, certainly recently, we bounced from it once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. We're about to hit it for the 6th time. So bear that one in mind on how you want to position yourselves. I haven't really made a decision on what I'm going to do if we hit that level. I may just concede and get some back in. I mean, it's still a $70 per tau gain that I've had. But the issue is now going to be the 20 EMA, the 10 EMA, the 50 EMA. They're all obviously moving downwards. Okay, they're all moving in this direction. All right, so it's what do we do? Right, let's just say, right, it bounces off the 320 again. We have that move up. Okay, that's the way it's going. What do? We wait for the 10 EMA. Well, it breaks that quite often. It's only $12 away. Okay, then $20 away is a 20 EMA. Okay, if it breaks the 20 EMA and it closes above it, now's the time to move. But the reality of it is, when you're watching that, unless you're watching it like a hawk, it's going to break the 20 EMA. You're going to see it a little bit later, if not have to wait 24 hours for another close. Before you know it, it's at 346 or whatever. And then suddenly at 354, only $10 away, you're battling the 0.5 fib and the 50 EMA. And now you're suddenly in that position of, is it really worth the risk for $10 worth of game? I might as well sit on my hands and wait. And this is the problem with sidestepping in a bull market. And that's a risk I'm taking. I accept that, because then it breaks it. Let's say it does break it. Oh, well, there's a 200 EMA. And then suddenly you're back at 370, so 373. before you really get a clean, because this is close. All of these levels here are close. We're talking, I mean, really, $50 between its local support at 320, the 10, the 20, the 50, and the 200 EMA, and you've got basically 2 fib levels in that. So you've got 8 things within $50 of each other, which you could see some sort of reaction from. So it can be quite difficult from that. And if you are out and you saw moves like yesterday, that's where you've got to hold your nerve and think, I need to just sit. But you've got to have an idea of how and when you want to get back in. I'm kind of thinking if we break above the 50 EMA, I'm going to take the risk. If we can break and hold it, because it's going to be the 50 EMA and this 0.5. And before you know, we may even see that run up to 420. We could get all the way up to 420 and still not be in a good position. But I don't want to miss out on a move of that. And by then we'll have cleared a lot of noise. So that's probably where I'd be thinking. But right now, I don't really have any reason to get back in. And that's not what people want to hear, I'm sure. But that's where it is. We keep having these little moves up and then these moves back down. The more we hit a level, the weaker it becomes. All that kind of stuff that you've read and heard and seen act in the past, it is true. And maybe this fib is just not very well drawn, and actually this level is there. Maybe that's what it is, and we just don't see it because I've not drawn it on the right time frame or whatever, and it suits it better there because it's getting a very strong reaction from it, and we've got that vector zone. But I'm kind of hedging my bets that I feel there's a better move down than there is getting the aping back in. So that's kind of where I'm looking at it and seeing it. In terms of the 4 hour, I mean, it's just kind of tracked sideways. We've had a bit of up, we've had a bit of down, and that's really been it. And so you could say to yourself, okay, well, we are in some sort of descending compression. You know, there's that level there. You could, let's go to this fib. There's that level there you could potentially look at. I don't think you could look at this anymore, but it probably was all right. No, I thought maybe you could clip 2 or 3 there. I mean, you could suggest that. I don't really like it. I prefer drawing maybe this, trying to get the bottoms, like something more like that. So you could say it's at the lower ebb of that bottom at the moment, and maybe we start to see that move. Maybe that's going to help you kind of draw a cleaner picture. Now, this has suddenly become a bit more symmetrical. We just don't know if it's that or if it's that. But I suppose a move out of this, and maybe that helps you decide whether you're getting in or you're taking the risk that things are going to potentially move down. But that's something that I'd certainly be looking at. I think I'll leave those on there. I'll hit save as well. We'll see what happens to that. But the 10, the 50, and the 20, they're just EMAs, that is, they're just all on top of each other at the moment because we have tracked sideways for over 50 candles. And so, yeah. But it does feel like there's going to be a move. It's just which way that move goes, up or down. And we're just going to have to sit on our hands. And it's hard sometimes because that's part of the battle, isn't it? It's just having that mental fortitude, that confidence to sit on your hands, don't make a guess just on what you hope is going to happen, but actually wait for the chance to tell you and know that you a position where you can act from it. And, you know, worst case scenario is, for me, it has to get all the way up to, it actually has to get higher than this. I haven't worked it out, but I got out at 390, but I did a little move here, 320 to 360, and got a little bit more. So it's probably my average out now is probably 400, let's call it. So I've got plenty of time to decide for myself. And, you know, that's why just side steps, you know, more often than not take weeks to play out rather than hours or days. And within that, you're building yourself that filter to get back in. So yeah, that's where that one sits. SPX. So SPX on a daily, I mean, it's definitely reacted better. We've had that move up. We've come down and retested this 50 EMA a few times. And we are starting to see, again, very much like a lot of the other altcoins over the last couple of weeks, there just seems to be some sort of upper limit. Now, it's not the easiest to draw on here, just because, you know, you could draw it like that, but it has wicked through a few times. But again, that 50 EMA seems to be holding it at the moment. And I must admit, I am kind of tempted to try and fill that position in with some of the, because I did sell 50% Link, 50% Near, 50% Ondo. And that's just sat in cash. And so I'm just wondering whether there's an opportunity to put it into something which moves better And so, yeah, I'm looking at whether that 50 is the place, or if we can maybe try and get down to, 90 cents down where this will be in and around that time. I'll have to wait and see. People have looked at SUI in the past. SUI's just looking like the rest of them. We've had that move down. We've had that move up to the 50 EMA. It's catching up with the 200 here as well. So pretty strong resistance, and likely going to move back down. We've also got a sort of similar trend line here. I mean, a lot of altcoins are very similar at the moment. This kind of sort of battering us back. We could throw, if we wanted to, I'm sure if we could find a fib on here. Look at that. Fib ties in nicely with that rejection point there. It's just all looking like probably going to have a move back down with SUI as well. So that's kind of where I'm seeing a lot of those. Don't forget NAS all-time high yesterday. S&P all-time high yesterday. Yesterday or Wednesday? I think it's yesterday. A lot of these are doing well. Circle's pulling back quite kind of nicely at the moment. But I still think this is just overexposed at the moment. So just going to wait to see how that one goes. A lot of these other ones all kind of doing okay. Tesla got a bit of a beating because of Trump talking about checking on Elon's immigration status, and something that was posted in Discord, which I think is probably worthwhile. Next week is a very quiet week in terms of news. I can't remember what there is. I've got it on the other screen. Next week there's some unemployment claims, but other than that, there's not much. The week after, it's interesting. It's a bit of a crypto week in the US House. So we've got the Clarity Act, so that's all about regulation. So they're going to be discussing that in a lot more. We got anti-CBDCs, which, obviously that's good for crypto. That's what, as crypto moon boys, we don't like CBDCs. So you could see maybe a positive spin from that. And then there's further discussions on the Genius Act, which is stable coins. So again, we may see just some positive outcome from those to kind of help. Not to mention next week, and it is a quiet news week, as I said, but we've got the tariff deadline. So who knows what we may get over the next 48, 96 hours. It's going to lead to some sort of movement in the markets. We're starting to see some of the big boys, EU, and I know China and Canada don't necessarily end on the 9th of July or the deadline, but the EU does, and loads of other minor countries. Apologies if you're from there. No slate against any of your countries there. But yeah, so we could just see a volatile week within that. And with that in mind, just sort of treat your positions a bit carefully. I just say keep an eye on Bitcoin, what it's doing. I like that top line there. See how that's going to move. We lose it, okay, fine. Not necessarily the end of the world, but we're probably going to see that 105, as I mentioned earlier, as a position for it to pull back to at the minimum. But the rest of the altcoins, I'm not really too excited about those, if I'm honest right now. That's it for me. Just a little update from Tuesday. I will see you all next Tuesday, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'll speak to you all soon. Cheers now.